My father slammed eviction papers on the table. You're a failure. You have 12 hours to get out. Your brother owns this house now. I just smiled and left. But the moment my brother walked in, he realized he'd made the biggest mistake of his life. Dad stormed through the door like a hurricane at 8 p.m. on a Tuesday, slamming eviction papers down so hard my coffee spilled across the kitchen table, the same table where Mom taught me to read before she died. This wasn't anger. This was theater. Performance cruelty. Maybe this will finally teach you responsibility. He sneered, arms crossed like a judge delivering sentence. Your brother bought this house. You have until 8 a.m. tomorrow to be gone. My childhood home. Mom's curtains still hung in the windows. The pencil marks tracking my height were still on the doorframe. The treehouse Andrew and I built when we were kids stood outside, weathered but standing. 12 hours to pack up 28 years like it meant nothing. Why? I asked, voice steady. Dad's smirk widened. Your brother made a smart investment. Consider this a lesson in how the real world works. Andrew, the golden child. If he sneezed, Dad acted like he'd cured cancer. Me, the quiet one who never shined bright enough, never made enough money, never impressed the right people. I'd spent the last 3 years helping Dad with repairs after his knee surgery, maintaining this house for free while working 2 jobs. None of it mattered. I stood up slowly and said one word, okay. Dad actually looked annoyed that I didn't argue. I think he wanted the fight, wanted to prove I was emotional and irresponsible. Instead, I packed everything methodically through the night, every box labeled, every receipt saved, every repair invoice I'd kept over the years organized. That's when Andrew arrived at 7:30 a.m., keys jangling in his hand like trophies. You're still here? He laughed, that condescending tone he'd perfected. Thought Dad told you to clear out. Don't make this ugly, Chris, just go quietly. Maybe you'll thank me someday for forcing you to finally grow up. The way he said thank me sparked something cold in my chest. This house was Mom's too, I said quietly. Andrew shrugged, tossing his designer jacket on the couch. Mom's not here anymore, and you can't live off Dad's charity forever. Time to face reality. He walked around inspecting like a landlord, stopped at the wall of family photos. He pulled down the picture of Mom holding me as a baby. You should take this. I'll be redecorating soon. This whole vibe is depressing. He was planning to erase Mom's traces like she'd never existed. It felt like losing her all over again. Only this time it was by choice. His choice. You don't waste time, do you? I said. This place needs a serious refresh. You've been stuck here like a ghost for years. Honestly, you should be grateful I'm forcing you to move forward with your life. Grateful for being blindsided. Grateful for losing my home. You've always had everything handed to you, I said. Ever wonder if you actually earned any of it? And you've always been jealous? He shot back. Always have been. Always will be. That's your problem. I loaded my car while he made calls about contractors and paint colors. I heard him on the phone. Yeah, I'll have the locks changed this afternoon. Can't be too careful. When I dropped off my key that evening, both Dad and Andrew were waiting with more papers. You need to settle what you owe, Dad said, sliding a sheet across nearly $3,000 itemized for back rent and utilities. That's insane. I've maintained this place for 3 years for free. That was your choice. Dad snapped. This is business. Pay what you owe. The next morning, my bank alert showed $1,200 gone. Dad had used our old joint account from when I was in college. The one I'd forgotten to close. He'd just taken my money without permission. That was the breaking point. I got a motel room and spent 2 days researching property law. Then I called a lawyer specializing in inheritance disputes. This doesn't sound right, he said after hearing my story. If your name was on the original title as an inheritor from your mother's estate, you should have been properly notified of any sale. Do you have documentation? I did. Mom's will. The original deed showing both Andrew and me as beneficiaries after her death. Dad was supposed to hold it in trust until we were both 30, but I'd turned 31 last month. Andrew was only 28. Your father sold property that you legally co-owned, my lawyer said slowly. Without your consent. That's potentially fraud. My name was still on the title. Dad had sold our house, Mom's house, without my knowledge or consent. The sale was to Andrew for $180,000 when comparable homes in the neighborhood sold for $340,000. We can contest this, my lawyer said. Potentially reverse the entire transaction. I rebuilt my life over the next month, got a better job, found an apartment, opened a new bank account Dad couldn't touch. Meanwhile, my lawyer gathered evidence and filed an injunction. Andrew had already sunk $45,000 into renovations. He'd taken out a loan to flip the house and sell it for profit. Now he couldn't sell, couldn't rent, couldn't finish the work. The house sat half demolished, hemorrhaging money. At the preliminary hearing, my lawyer laid everything out methodically. Original title with my name, Mom's will, lack of proper notification, below market sale to a family member, unauthorized bank withdrawal, evidence I'd been maintaining the property. The judge listened carefully, taking notes. This court has serious concerns about how this sale was conducted. Outside the courtroom, Andrew stormed up, face red with rage. You can't do this. Do you know how much money I've already put into that house? I took out a loan, Chris. This will ruin me. I looked him straight in the eye. You should have thought about that before you kicked me out of Mom's house with 12 hours notice. At the full hearing 3 months later, the judge delivered her verdict. This court finds sufficient grounds to void the sale due to fraudulent misrepresentation and lack of proper consent from a co-owner. The property will revert to joint ownership between the brothers. Any unauthorized withdrawals must be reimbursed with interest. Any improvements made to the property will be considered joint investment. Andrew went pale. Dad's jaw tightened like a vice. Do you know what you've done? Andrew shouted as we left the courtroom. I just lost $45,000. You didn't lose it, I said calmly. You invested in something that wasn't solely yours. You gambled and lost. Dad eventually bought out my share at fair market value, $170,000 plus the $1,200 he'd stolen, plus interest, plus my half of Andrew's renovation costs. I walked away with nearly $200,000. I bought my own condo, started my own business, built a life on my terms. Andrew had to sell the house at a loss after finishing renovations. Between his loan payments and the buyout, he lost over $60,000. 6 months later, at a family gathering I actually chose to attend, I walked in wearing a tailored suit, standing taller than I ever had. Dad looked across the table. I hear you're doing well. I am, I said. Better than I ever imagined. Andrew couldn't meet my eyes. As I prepared to leave, I looked at them both. What you did hurt more than I can explain, but it forced me to stop waiting for your approval. You thought you were teaching me a lesson about the real world. Turns out I learned something different. Self-respect. I walked out into the cool night air and smiled. I wasn't the failure anymore, and deep down, they knew it.